الرحيم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين لا سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره. In the name of God, the Compassionate, the Merciful. We've been reflecting on a beautiful hadith from Imam Kazin alayhi salam. In a conversation with Hisham ibn Hakam, Imam alayhi salam mentioned the significance of intellect and reasoning in Islam. And in the previous session, we talked about the destructive role of three things. We said that if someone goes after unrealistic dreams and desires, or if someone speaks too much, or if someone follows his whims and lusts, his intellect would be weakened and nearly would be destroyed. Although I said it seems that intellect will never be destroyed completely. Now, in the next paragraph, Imam alayhi salam says, Ya Hisham, as-sabru ala al-wahda alamatu quvvat al-aql. You remember we talked about everything having a sign, because previously we had about inna likulli shay'in dalilan, and I explained the significance of sign. And you remember we talked about some of the implications of this. For example, I said that everything which exists in this world, there must be a way to discover that. Here again, Imam refers to the same fact that everything has a sign. If someone's reason or intellect or aql is strong, one of its signs is that for him to be alone would not be difficult. He would be able to remain alone for long hours, or maybe even for few days or weeks, without feeling bad, without feeling, that life is terrible. This is a very important point. Unfortunately, we human beings, because we don't have a strong connection with God the Almighty, and because we also don't have ability to enjoy the pleasure of intellectual exercise within ourselves, we always seek pleasure outside. When we want to enjoy ourselves, we must have something outside. Either something to eat or drink, which is very, very important for us. If we go to any place, if we go to mountain, or for example to a beautiful jungle or garden, if we don't eat and drink, we don't feel good. We must definitely eat and drink. And in addition to eating and drinking, there must be beautiful sceneries, some beautiful, for example, gardens or, waterfalls, something like that, river, sea. Or, for example, seeing some artistic works, or playing with some people, or talking to some people. These are all pleasures or sources of pleasure that come from outside. I have to have something outside, and after making certain relation with that object or person, I enjoy myself. Therefore, when I am left alone, all sources of pleasure stop. And then I am left to myself. That is when all the problems start. Bad ideas come to my mind. All the fears come to my mind. All the worries and stress come to my mind. And this is why when they want to really put someone in a very terrible situation in prison, they confine him in a cell which is only for him. soul confinement, so that that person is alone. When a person is alone, it's very difficult. If you have someone to talk, it's better. Even some people who are put in that condition, inshallah you will never be put in that condition, they say that even if the people who are going to come and question you, if they come and speak to you, it's better than remaining for days in that condition without anyone talking to you. At least you want some people to come and shout at you so that you know that there is someone there. This is a very difficult situation for us. And you may have had this, experience often, that when you are alone at home, it's very difficult. So you switch on TV or radio, or you go to internet. You have to make some noise and some kind of connection with the external world so that you feel more comfortable. If you are just alone, no telephone connection, no internet connection, no electricity, no TV, no radio, you feel very bad. Why? Sometimes there may be good reasons for that. I'm not saying it's always bad. Sometimes because you are a person that has lots of responsibilities, being cut off from the external world is not something good. It's not that everyone who uses internet is using this for bad purpose. Sometimes you need to use internet. So if internet is cut off, then you feel bad. But it's not always for good reasons. Sometimes the reason is that just I don't want to be left with myself. I want to be somehow away from myself. I want something to preoccupy my mind and draw my attention to something else. Because I don't have anything beautiful in myself that I can enjoy. I don't know how to think about scientific issues. I don't know how to reflect on my moral problems. I don't know how to pray to God when I am alone. So to be alone for me means to do nothing. To be in an idle situation which has no benefit for me. Therefore, it's very difficult for me. But if there is a person who is very thoughtful, very contemplative, for him to be alone is the best opportunity. Because he wants some time that no one distracts, no one annoys, no one disturbs him, and he can keep thinking about the issues that he has in mind. Already issues are queuing in his mind that need attention. He just needs some chance. Or he needs some chance to reflect on his situation. He wants to reflect on his shortcomings, on his weaknesses, on his deficiencies, on his sins. He wants to find out how he has used his life so far and how he should plan for future. He wants to have some time to be alone with God and enjoy this loneliness with God. So such a person would not suffer when he is alone. Such a person would find this a very beautiful experience. Such a person goes walking kilometers away from Kaaba so that he can be alone in a cave. And that is the Prophet. Why the Prophet was going to the cave? Not because there was something there. He was going to cave because there was nothing there. It was not that there was some equipment or some people and he was going there to meet them or use them. He was going to cave because it was empty. No one was there, no distraction, no disturbance. And that was the most beautiful part of his life. Sometimes he was staying there for weeks. And of course he had to go back to normal life. But his first choice and his own preference was to be in that condition, alone with himself and with his Lord. So Imam Kazin alayhi salam says, if you want to know whose intellect is strong, see how prepared he or she is to be left alone. And to what extent he can remain alone. If he cannot remain alone at all, or can only be left alone for a few minutes, so his or her intellect is not strong. But if it's a person that can remain alone for days, and feel very good, very nice, then this person is likely to have a strong intellect. Of course, I'm saying likely because sometimes people enjoy loneliness because of some psychological problem, because they cannot socialize, so they enjoy to be alone. This is not a good and healthy condition. For the people who can have very successful social life, everyone respects them and loves them, and still they want to be lonely. This is a sign of having a strong intellect. Not for the people who, whenever they go to the society, they have a headache or they have a fight or they have a problem, therefore they choose to remain alone. This is not a good condition. So, the people who have such a strength inside that they can have many issues to think about, they can have many beautiful ideas in their own mind to think about it. Loneliness is not bad, indeed it's good. When Imam Kazin alayhi salam himself was put in prison, he thanked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said to Allah, you know that I was looking for such opportunity to be left alone so that I can only be with you, to pray, to worship, to think, to ask forgiveness. So this is a good condition. I was thinking about this concept of quwwatul aql. What does it mean to have a strong intellect? Does it mean to be more intelligent? Maybe you say quwwatul aql means to be more intelligent, more sharp, more smart, more capable of understanding very subtle points. Of course, this can be to some extent influential, but I don't think this is the sign of quwwatul aql. I think, and I have some evidence I will share with you shortly, that a strength of intellect is not a matter of your IQ. A strength of intellect is a matter of how much you let your intellect to rule over your soul. Because it comes right after the paragraph about those people who weaken their aql, those who follow their long desires, tulul amal, or those who speak too much, those who follow their appetites, and therefore they are like people who destroy their aql. You know, Imam said previously that man sallata thalathan ala thalath faka'annama a'ana ala hadme aqlih. So, it's not a matter of how intelligent you are. Maybe you are very genius. Maybe you are a top philosopher. Maybe you are a winner of a Nobel Prize. But if your intellect within your own soul is imprisoned, is maghloob, as we said, you know, in the sajda after Dua Sabah, that we say, Nafsi mahjoob wa aqli ma'yoob, aqli maghloob wa hawai ghalib. My intellect is defeated. If you are genius and your intellect is prisoned or is weakened, then you cannot say Imam Kazim is referring to me, quwwatul aql. This is not quwwatul aql. So, a person who has managed to get rid of too much speaking, it's very important, you know, the connection. If you manage to get rid of those three, speaking too much, speaking unnecessary things, if you get rid of following your lower desires, and if you get rid of unrealistic dreams and desires, then it means that your intellect is in good condition, is in a very strong position. Everyone is listening to him. You know, like having a king or having a ruler that everyone obeys and follows him. This is the sign of strength. But if you have a king or if you have a ruler that is there and very capable, but no one listens to it, it's not useful. As Imam Ali said, La ra'ya liman la yuta'. If someone is not obeyed, there is no value in his opinion. You can be the best manager, but if your employee don't listen to you, what is the point? Intellect for every human being is good. We explained this before, that in every human being, intellect is hujjah of Allah. But the strength of intellect is something else. A strength of intellect is not something which is given to you automatically. A strength of intellect is something that you have to achieve. And that is by letting your intellect to rule over everything. Following the decisions which are made by your reason. Don't let your eyes or your ears overcome your intellect. Just go after some pleasures that come by seeing or hearing or tasting or touching. Those are not really, strong. Those are something that we share with animals. Those types of pleasure that are exclusively for human beings are those which relate to our intellect. So if we go after those types of pleasure, if we follow the orders which come from our intellect, then our intellect is strong. If the intellect is strong, then the pleasure comes from within. The pleasure comes from yourself. There is a beautiful ayah in the Quran about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. This is to some extent similar to Allah. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had wanted to enjoy himself by playing, for example, what would he have done? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لو أردنا أن نتخذ لهوان لاتخذناه من لدنا. If we wanted to amuse ourselves by doing something like playing a game, we would have done this with ourselves. We don't need to do something, we don't need to find a game so that we play. We didn't need to create human beings so that I play with them and make myself busy with them. If I wanted to do lahv, which is something that Allah never does, but if I had wanted to do lahv, I would have done it with myself. Because I have so many things, so many beautiful things in myself that I could please myself with them. I could enjoy myself with them. So a person who has a strong intellect has so many beautiful things inside that for him, those things which can be seen or heard are not significant. The world which is inside us is much greater than the world which is outside us. And this is why many scholars, they call the world which is inside us the greater world, Al-Alam Al-Akbar. And the world which is outside us is Al-Alam Al-Asqar. أتزعم أنك جرم صغير وفيك انطوى العالم الأكبر. You are not a small mass. There is a great world inside you. Actually, the greatest world, Al-Alam Al-Akbar. This poem is attributed in some books to Imam Ali, but some people say it's not Imam Ali, it's another person called Ali ibn Abi Talib, but it's not Imam Ali. But anyway, it's a wise poem. It's a very wise poem. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. So we don't need always to go outside. There are many things inside that we have not yet discovered. The questions that we have about ourselves are much more than the questions that we have about the external world. But unfortunately, we don't take that into account. We think that we know everything about ourselves. We don't know many things about outside. But in reality, what we know about ourselves is much less than what we know about the external world. So, if someone is strong in his intellect, in the sense that we explained, for him to be lonely is not difficult. And then Imam says, فَمَنْ عَقِلَ عَنِ اللَّهِ. And then if he starts understanding Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and thinking in a productive way, not just thinking in a confused way. If you start thinking in a productive way about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the way that leads to knowledge and understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then اعتزل أهل الدنيا والراغبين فيها. In my understanding, this means that if your aql is strong, it would lead to the knowledge of God, and when you know God, not only loneliness is not bad for you, you will yourself decide to reduce your relation with people. اعتزل, he himself decides to reduce his contacts with the people, unless those people remind him of God. If they are ahlul dunya, if they are raghibin, they are after dunya, he says, this relation is not good for me. They make me busy. I forget Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he himself tries to cut off his relation with such people. The disciples of Jesus, peace be with him, asked him, O Prophet of God, whom should we take as our companions? When we want to make friends, with what type of people we should make friendship?